Let's talk about it. Focus on today because you're in that time.
That's what you can control today.
A lot of people say that, but do you really understand what you're saying? Tomorrow's not promised. So what are you doing today to make today valuable for you? Let's talk about it. Hey there, wonderful listeners. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It. I'm your host, Queen.
And this is the difference.
What's up, difference? Welcome back. Last episode, he was out and about making a difference in our world. So it's nice to have you back. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I want to make something crystal clear. This podcast is not sponsored by any authors, and we are not here to read or teach on any books. We're about to hear purely our personal insights and reflections. Now, with that said, thanks for joining us. We just want to do something a little different today. We're still going to talk about books. Last episode, I spoke on, changing your mindset and from how to be successful from John C. Maxwell's book. And today, I'm going to turn it over to the difference because we want to emphasize on something, but remember, this is just our opinion.
How it came about, I had this epiphany in a way where I've realized where, people are so into like looking at their iPhones or iPads, watching shows, and they got their Nooks or their some form of a tablet where they like to do their reading, audiobooks or purchasing, streaming it or purchasing digitally. But I've just noticed how out and about, people are still buying books that I feel that have pretty much no impact or anything that can help them in life. People just like buying, novels, anything, fantasy books or all that. And
for entertainment.
Yeah. And, I'm not going to take that away from, you be you, but,
right.
How's that going to make an impact on your life? What's going to help you out? I read books because, I just have a self-interest in, what can I do to improve, my mindset? And there could be multiple topics or multiple books on just one topic, but, I look at it as self-growth in a way. I like to add something different on. And it helps me to know how I can deal with situations that, when I do come across it, rather than being somebody who's just surprised by the fact that, I might get asked a question that I can't handle, I don't like, to make assumptions, I like to be reactive and be on point with it. And reading books on that, just helps out, it just gives you that extra armor, something that makes you more self-aware of how you can handle situations. And when it comes to, we spoke about Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying, Start Living. That was a great book, just that was his only topic was, how to stop worrying. And I can help you change your mindset and improve on, when you do come across, those situations in life, you know how to react to it.
Right.
Yeah. Then you have books where, you have leadership books where people, they, I hate that saying where, they're a natural born leader. No, I disagree with that. To be a leader, you have to have that mentorship. You have to rub shoulders with another leader. And, there are books out there about leadership, about Zig Ziglar, and you got folks like John C. Maxwell, and there's multiple, leadership books that are out there. But I highly recommend looking into John C. Maxwell. He has things that would help entrepreneurs or, people to be better leaders and, how to build a team and build leaders out of them. And then you have, other authors like Joyce Meyer. She has a great book that helps you change your mindset. It's called A Battlefield of, the Mind. And that's a great read. It's helped me, knowing how to, to deal with situations where it can be very hectic, where you can sit back and analyze it. Then you have certain books out there, like for health, you know,
Hmm.
get a good read. Gary Brecka's a guy. I think people have probably come across him on social media. He specializes in biology. He's a biologist, and he's a great guy. Where I normally take some reference and I'll just read about some of the things. And there's also other books that that do help out. And I'm getting into Tim Grover's Winning, and
Yes.
no, just reading books. It's people may find boring, but I find self growth. Self growth is essential in life for an individual, and for if you're a kid reading your Harry Potter books, there's nothing wrong with that. You're still a child, but when you reach that age when you fly out of out of that nest, you know, uh, you want to be prepared. You want to have that ammo, you know, to go out there and tackle life because when you leave home, you're going out there with a hammer in one hand to go build your
Yes.
future, and you have a Bible in the other hand, knowing that God's going to be, with you, through that journey. So, reading books on self growth to me it's essential, essential part of our life because there are people out there who didn't write these books, just to make money. They've wrote these books, because the experiences that they went through and what they succeeded in, they're helping us out too. So
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, the difference, because you have to have a why to want to read the books. Also, you mentioned your mindset. It's all up to the mindset of each individual of what they want to do to better themselves. And the reason why I love reading books, people might think it's crazy or they call us nerdy. Yeah, we're Samoans. We read books. You don't have to be a nerd to read the books. It's just for ourselves. I read it because it's to better myself, and like you said, it's armoring. I'm armoring myself. I got my toolkit, my tool box. I want to make sure that I am prepared when I'm out there, not dealing with people, dealing with even customer service at work, or even going to stores and dealing with patients, having patience and so forth. And you mentioned so many other books that are out there, and we're not recommending, we're not saying this and that, but we're just sharing what we've been doing, what I've been doing on the books. There are certain books that I like to read, depends on whatever you need help with. Like when I didn't mean to cut you off earlier, but when you mentioned John C. Maxwell, he has that book I love. It's the Communicate. Do you remember the title? Is it Communicating and Connecting? What's the actual title? I keep butchering that title. Um, you know what I'm talking about? The
yeah,
difference? Yeah. I love that book, but we'll get it right. I'll get it right next, listeners. But that alone means a lot to me because it's you're communicating. It don't matter who you're communicating, but you need to connect with that individual or a group of people. You just can't speak just to speak to hear yourself speak, right? That helped me a lot by everyday life, dealing with family, dealing with people at work, even people at the stores, or you know everyday life. And I'm glad we're talking about this, how impactful different books that we have available to us. It's just knowing what books you need to help yourself with whatever situation you're in right now. Oh, excuse me. Even if you're not in a situation, you just want to educate yourself. I like said, I always love to armor myself and make sure I'm ready to go out there. And it's nice to have that knowledge in the back of your mind, and it's just sitting there because you never know. Sometimes after reading something, it'll just stay there, but then it'll just automatically come out when you're interacting within a community or whoever you're interacting with. You mentioned the author Tim Grover. My goodness, the book I'm starting off on, The Relentless.
it was a funny take where I remember I walked in my manager's office. This was years back, and he had a stack six books, $6 high, a stack of books, and they're all how to win friends and influence people. And I happened to ask him, I said, who are these books for? He says, oh, we give it out to supervisors or new supervisors that come on board. I was like, oh, wow. Funny, I've read this years ago, you know, and you guys are using this for our management team.
And it all depends too how they teach it, because not everyone's gonna understand it or take it into consideration. I mean,
Mhm.
speaking personally, I've seen some books being given to managers. Not all of them, but some of them don't even practice it. So I just laugh because I know I've read some of those books that I see, and a lot of the
Mhm.
books are John C. Maxwell's leadership book.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and then also I remember when I took leadership in the early days of my career, that's when I was first introduced to John C. Maxwell when they played a DVD. That tells you my age. So I didn't know who John C. All I knew is they said these things. This man is the guru of leadership, and they just press play. And I was intrigued by the way he spoke, and very blessed. Fast forward that I was able to actually sit in a lot of his conferences. Very blessed, and that man speaks, with conviction and very powerful. But
And get his books autographed, huh?
oh, sure did. A lot of
Yeah.
my John C. Maxwell books are all autographed. Oh, and before I get back to Relentless, you mentioned earlier, kids reading the what Harry Potter or
Well,
whatever.
books on fantasy.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it's a child, I'm not going to take that away
No,
from
no.
them.
But what's
Let
cool
let
is no. What I was going to mention is that there are books out there too for children. Remember John C. Maxwell wrote a book too,
Oh yeah.
for the children, and, even there's a book on 5 love languages for
Hmm.
children, and there's teen books. I mean, there's a lot of books out there. So, yeah, back to, Relentless. I just read, 2 chapters, but it is already is very powerful. I mean, it basically saying that, the word relentless is the way they use it in here is basically say that you're gonna start gotta dig deep into your dark side. Everyone has a dark side, but that dark side turn it into a good where you become relentless, and instead of how people talk a lot that they want to do this, that they're going to do this, have these dreams and so forth. Just the
Hmm.
beginning of this book, it said basically you got to get off your butt and start putting everything in action and stop talking about it. So I'm very excited to actually finish this book because it's a real good book. So that is making you dig into and really evaluate what are you really doing.
It kind of reminds me of a book. It's not on anybody's wish list. It was a book that was recommended by a very good friend who recommended to him by a good friend.
Mhm.
And his book, it's called the Supernatural Ways of Royalty.
Ah,
And
yes.
in that book, I mean, you know, it talks about, do you know who you really are? You have to ask
Yes.
yourself that question. Do you know who you really are? And people think they really do. They
Mhm.
know themselves because, the only person that knows me is me. But when you ask yourself that, do you really know who you are? And this book breaks down, it makes you go deep,
Yeah.
dig deeper. And it's written by a pastor.
Yeah.
And it uses the principles in there from the Bible and how he teaches how no, we aren't just children, the children of God.
Mhm.
We're princes, princesses. He's our king. He's our
Right.
father. And a book, it helps the individual find their identity. Man, after reading that book, I tried to read it a second time around. Got to a point where I just like put it aside and grabbed another book that I wanted to read. But
It's
you know,
overwhelming.
yeah, the supernatural ways of royalty.
It
That's awesome read. You want to find out who you really are. What's your
yeah.
identity. Read that book.
Yeah. If you really wanna dig in, like the difference with Satan, and you want to make a real difference, that book, it It's great. It's a hard read because it forces you to really dig deep of who you really are. And it breaks it down and it goes deep because it talks about, things that happen in your past as a youngin, and you don't even know that's affecting you, but you really got to dig deep. And I love you said it was written by a pastor. It's obvious written by a pastor because they could the pastor actually put a lot of scriptures in there and explains everything. And yes, sometimes I have to put the book aside because it is very deep. If you really want to know about yourself, you're going to know about yourself after reading this book.
It's going to help you peel away those layers, you know,
Yes.
and it's going to break it down, and you're going to be like, oh shucks, man, you know, it really does help you find your identity,
Hmm.
because the moment you find your identity, you're unstoppable. You know who you are.
Hmm. And not too many people talk about that, right? The difference, the identity. You know, now we hear a lot that there's an identity crisis, but when we're talking about this book, it really makes you like I hate to be repetitive, but it just really digs, like you say, it just peels the layer one by one, and ooh, I love it. I love that book. Thanks for reminding me. I do need to read it for a second time because the first time was great, but it's
Yeah,
been like 3 years since I've read it, and I think I need to dig into that. But I'm gonna finish this one first, the Relentless,
yeah.
because
I wonder how you got that book.
yeah, The Relentless. Yeah, a
Yeah.
young man ordered it, and I was very surprised, that, you know, I didn't know about this person, but thanks for introducing it to this young man who ordered this book. I mean,
Oh, that young man's an awesome individual.
he's very awesome. Way to hook it up, young man. Yeah, so I mentioned the 5 love languages. What are your thoughts on that? I've shared a little bit about it, and you already know how I feel about that book because we talked about it.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know if I was sanguine or I haven't figured out, my love language.
Mhm. It sounds like you're gonna have to go back and figure it out.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have to communicate that so it could be, it could be
I'm
connect.
just, I'm just, I'm, I'm just an introvert.
Yeah, but that book is it's really nice.
Yes.
Renee Brown's another great author. I love her books.
Yeah. She has a special, not a special, but she has a show on. She has a talk on
TED Talk
Netflix.
on Netflix. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called. I think it's Daring. I think it's based off of her book,
Her
Daring
book.
Greatly.
Yes.
Yeah, Daring Greatly. Yeah, that's a good. That's also a good read.
Mhm. Wow. A lot of good books out there. You just gotta know which ones
Yeah,
to get.
there's books on books on politics. There's I like reading history too, majority of the time. And if I want a little bit of fantasy, something, I used to be big on reading stuff, like the Dan Brown novels, and something suspenseful, but Hollywood's kind of ruined those books for me. So
So you were probably one of those type reading the books, you go watch a movie that's from those books you read, and then you like to dissect it and be a critic
no, because
of the
Hollywood
movie?
changes it. When Hollywood gets the rights over these books,
Mhm.
these popular books, they tend to change the story around a bit. But like I said, I like reading. I like reading a lot of history, stuff from like World War II. Especially the Civil War. Something in between. The self growth books.
But that's also good too to read history to know the foundation of different
Hmm.
things. Or if you're just having an argument, a debate with somebody.
Oh yeah, some people they go to Google or Wikipedia. Some of these books, like are based on history. Some can be like first hand accounts, by these authors. They've been there, they've seen it, they experienced it, and they put pen to paper. And then you got people, it's pretty much hearsay. They said this happened and that. But I just like reading a good book. I just like you know, I'm not going to take away anything from like those Amazon Kindles or
Mhm.
those Nooks. You know, I like holding the book. I like the physical object. I like to open up, split that book open and just smell the pages. Because I do that all the time when I get a book. I open it up and I don't have a habit of smelling it.
It's just refreshing for you. Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah. I just like flipping through the pages, or
Get all the smartness within the sniff. Every sniff is a I ain't gonna lie, it does smell good when you get a brand new print book, a brand new
Mhm.
book. Just like some people love that's why they love the newspapers. Some people are still ordering newspapers and not go online, the old school folks.
Yeah.
What's another book that, you've read that you think that around like, what's going on today, like, people may be struggling, I don't know out there who's listening, maybe relationship, maybe you mentioned finances.
Entrepreneurship. Right now, I'm balancing books on self growth and politics.
Do you see some of the
Uh,
books that you've read in the politics, it can also, intertwine with self-growth, with
uh, not as much. In the past, it had nothing to do with having that relation with politics. The
Mhm,
self growth books, they're there to help the individual out. And they carry that knowledge with them in politics. Like leadership books from John C. Maxwell, Zig Ziglar.
mhm,
You have those motivational speakers that I've never really wanted to buy a book from, like that Tim Robbins individual.
mhm,
But those books are just there to help a person grow, depending on which field he wants to get better at. I'm more into, pretty much sharpening my mind, reading books like just like Brene Brown. You brought that Daring Greatly. That's something there that will help sharpen your mind and handle, any situation that's out there. And you got Battlefield of Mind by Joyce Meyer, which is
mhm.
also a great read that helps you sharpen up your mind. And some of these books that it's iron sharpens iron, and you just have to pick what field that you want to improve on.
Right.
And those books are that iron, you know, with your mind, just like I said, iron sharpens iron. Then you have books, there's books on finance, the economy,
Mhm.
and I've been going back and forth with another book I read, like American Marxism, that has to do with pretty much it's political in a way, but
Yeah.
that's something I wouldn't want to discuss, on this podcast.
Well, I
'Cause-
know, one individual who wants you to discuss that book.
oh,
Whyuce?
But that'd probably be a whole podcast of that book because I know you can go on for days with that one. Yeah, I forgot, like, when you say, iron sharpen iron, and for those of our listeners out there, if you really wanna move forward and do good things and stay on top of things, is basically you gotta look at your inner circle.
yeah, you're pretty much, I can guarantee you the five people you hang around, if they smoke, I guarantee you're a smoker too. You
Mhm.
know, and it's, you know, birds of a feather, they flock together, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it was one of John C. Maxwell's book, it's being a leader. One of the maybe it's the growth. Oh, I got all my books mixed up, but yeah, it's very important of who you keep close to your inner circle. Who are you around? Are you around people who want to succeed, like become entrepreneurs, or are you just around people that just go out, kick it, or whatever you're doing out there? But just
Well,
take a look around you.
yeah, yeah. The people you hang around with is pretty much like I said, I guarantee you, all your five friends, I mean, not all your five friends, but if all five or majority of your friends do a particular thing, it's guaranteed you're going to be doing the same thing as they're doing. And if you really, you have people who are ambitious in the corporate world, and they're not just ambitious or cunning. They know what to do. They'll
Yeah.
see somebody in management that, you know, they really want to, you know, reach that level, climb that corporate ladder. So the only way to do that is, you know, to be around that individual, ask questions. What did you do to get, you know, to this position? Or what, you know, do you have any advice for me? What can I do to, you know, climb up this ladder? And the thing is, you don't want to spend that time hanging around with your coworkers, because they're not gonna get you where you want to go. So you just make yourself available for that, you know,
Yeah.
that supervisor or manager, you know, pick his brain, you know.
Right.
If he brings a sack of lunch to work, then you bring a sack of lunch to work. You know, don't go follow your five friends who go up into the food court to go buy food. You know, learn from
Go.
them. You know,
Yeah.
learn from a leader. You know, get around him, rub elbows and all that. You know, not basically kissing his ass. No way. You know, you just want to know, what does it take for me to get there.
And on that note, that you're not there to kiss anybody's ass, and that's what I want to say is what part of Relentless, the book, was saying is you have to you have to ignore the outside voices. Ignore what people are saying about you. Who
Hmm.
cares what they're saying when you're out there trying to do your best, forcing yourself to do great. You should not be worried about what people have to say. Their opinions mean nothing, means
Hmm.
absolutely nothing,
I
because
agree.
bottom line is they're not paying your fair I mean, your rent or your mortgage or whatever, but the
Your
relentless book
bills.
said, yeah, you have to be relentless about it. And that
Hmm.
means is pushing out all that negative talk, all those people trying to talk about you, what you're doing, and their opinion means nothing. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that
It's
up.
it's kind of like that, you know. It's kind of like how some people are. They're worried about what other people be thinking about them or say, you know, with their they they, they try to be, you know, crowd pleasers, you
Mhm.
know, a people
Well,
pleaser,
I don't
you
think it's
know.
just Samoan people. I think it's people. Like, you said they're crowd pleasers. I know a lot of people who are yes man, yes sir, uh, like you said, crowd pleasers. Are you one of the crowd pleasers, listeners? So if you're that, look, just reevaluate yourself and look at what you're doing. But yeah, it's not kissing ass, guys. Back to it's just upgrading yourself. You want to be in that position, so you got to either dress
Yeah.
the part, like,
Hmm.
the difference, say, rub elbows with that person, shoot, bring a sack lunch, sit
Yeah.
next to the
You,
person.
you yeah, you don't want to be that person, you know, on the outside looking in, you
Mhm.
know. The people that are looking in, you know, you think about it, those are your coworkers. You want them to be on the outside looking in. You want to be in. You want to be with that person. I mean, you want to learn from that person, you
Yeah,
know. There's nothing wrong with being ambitious, you know. People just
nothing.
have to they just have to do what they have to get there, you know. They can't sit there and whine like, "Oh man, you know, if I would have stayed in college, I could have been." I says, "You don't really need a college education." I've known leaders and people in the corporate world who've climbed that corporate ladder without a college education. It's just
Right.
that they immersed themselves, they surrounded themselves with, you know, other leaders.
Mhm.
He wanted to learn from them.
That's exactly what they did, and I like that you brought that up because that's important.
Mhm.
Right now, I have a degree, but really wasn't when you look back, it's like nowadays, 4-year degree at a college, to me personally, it's obsolete. You know, you're not gonna come out of college and go straight and get a job. You're gonna have to go look for a job, and hopefully you get a job with that degree. But like you said, if you wanna start rubbing elbows with people and immersing yourself, it's basically go seek those who you wanna be, the positions
Yeah.
you want.
Well, you know, like you mentioned college, you know, you went 4 years of college, you know, and you know, for just that piece of paper. You know, that was the most expensive piece of paper that you paid for, your college degree.
Right.
And I normally advise people, this is my opinion, but I say if you want to really get into the job world right away after college, I advise to send your kids to a technical school. After 4 years, the moment they graduate from that technical school, they're working right now. They're earning 36. They're journeymen. They're going through an apprenticeship right away, earning 35 to $45 an hour. While that person who graduated, took 4 years to graduate from college for an underwater basket weaving, degree, still looking out for a job, working as a barista or, working
Nothing
away
wrong
from
with that, but that's the reality.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's what's happening.
And even like if someone comes ask me, it's just my personal opinion. They say, how did you do college? What's the best route? I said, well, if you want to go to a 4-year college, I recommend you go to a community college first. It's much cheaper. It's going to be the same courses almost when you go to a 4-year, but it's just a more expensive way of doing it. So I did it that way, which was much cheaper, but you still got your 4-year degree. Got your 2-year AA, then you moved on and get your bachelor's. And sure enough, I'm not the type that like want to be in school. I didn't want to get my master's nor my doctorate. And you said it best. The technical schools, it could be 2, 3 years, whatever. Then you come out and there's jobs, out there. But
Oh yeah, like I said, you paid for the most expensive piece of paper
yeah,
that after 4 years of college, you paid for, and some people are still paying for the most expensive piece of paper, that college degree. That is, how much did your piece of paper cost, if you don't mind me asking?
Ugh.
Yeah.
It was up there. If I were to
The
go
five
back,
the
I would
five
change everything.
the five figures, huh?
Yes, unknowingly. Yeah. So so kudos to you who still want to go through the old school, get your 4-year degree, or if you get a scholarship, cool. But
Yeah.
I've lived through it, went to community college and got my 4-year degree.
Because that was a mindset that we all grew up with. Our
Yes.
parents told us to go to school. You graduate and you have a good job.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you go to school for how many years? Let's say 12 years. You go home, school starts at 7, get off at 3 or whatever, and then
Mhm.
you do it all over again as an adult. Either
Yeah,
you go to school, college, or you go to work. Pitchfork right there,
it's
9 to 5.
wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, wash, rinse, and repeat. That's all you did.
That's all you did. So yeah, wow. That's what life is right now. I mean, if you're stressing over that, just
Hmm.
think about it.
Pick up
And
a good book.
yes, think of a good book that will help you motivate you. But when you get motivated, you need to put it into action instead of
Hmm.
just staying motivated. That's what relentless was talking about. You got to be relentless about it. Yes, it's great to be motivated. Find a book, get motivated about it, and then put it into action. That's where the real work happens. Is when you start implementing those things that you learned. Because remember, don't you have, I know people that keeps talking about their same dream over and over. But I let them talk, but there's time where I don't need them to start. I need to stop having to rent space in my head, taking up my time,
Hmm.
because I could be doing something else that is more productive in my life, because time is one thing we cannot get back. Once you take up my time, it's gone. So that's why time is vital, it's imperative, and and I'm very selective on who I spend my time with. What about you? The difference?
I totally agree. Time is precious, and you know, it sometimes does get upsetting when somebody, they wasted your time. You can never get it back.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be, whining about it. Like, man, that guy sure wasted my time, man. I'm
Right.
really pissed. I'm gonna do something bad to him. Nah, 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 nah.
What I'll do nowadays is I'll tell them very nicely, like, okay, I heard this the third time. You said this last week, you said this last month, as a matter of fact. My question would be, what are you doing about it? Because I'm hearing it over and over, and yet you have not done anything about it. You don't even have a solution about what you're complaining about. And that's what we're letting this talk about too, is don't let those type of individuals take up space in your head, in your life, because that basically just put a little block, a little hiccup in what you're trying to do. You just gotta, your mind just gotta be emptied out and just focus on where you're trying to go. You're trying to be great. So how am I gonna be great? I'm gonna X this out, X this out. All right, just be me,
Trim that fat.
That's it. Bottom line is trim it, and you wanna surround yourself with good people. I wanna finish off, what do you think, difference, you know how, I know John C. Maxwell talked about, I keep referencing, him, but this is my insight, my personal, opinion. He talked about creating leaders and having leaders around you. You cannot be the smartest person in that group. You want people who you teaching and they become better than you. I believe that wholeheartedly.
I totally agree.
Mhm.
You don't want to. You don't. What John did was, he'd always not stress about, helping create leaders. He helped with create, teams of leaders,
Yeah,
and he would get them in a circle and decide, which one's good at, a particular, task, and he would never put the person, who's not good at a certain thing to do something that, they know nothing of, but he would always put somebody who knows it, hey, shadow this person, like I said, iron sharpens iron, and
uh-huh,
what John C. Maxwell did was, or what he really meant, that you don't want to be the smartest person in that, in the team or your group, is because everyone's going to be looking at you. But
right.
thing is, you already provided them the tools. You provided the guidance. You've helped them become leaders on their own, so they can build their own teams. You're just there to not just to facilitate, but to guide these folks, and
Yeah.
you know and I wouldn't want to be a person when, like, there's a group of 20 and they all come to me with questions, and I'm looking at them and like, what the hell did I just do with you guys for the last 6 months?
So,
And so that tells you right there, like, I'm not a really good, team leader,
or
if they're still asking me for questions, for, my input.
or we need to look at what we're communicating, or how we communicating to those individuals.
Mhm.
Each person has a different way of learning. So it could not be
Mhm.
your fault because you don't know what's going on. Maybe they're not getting the concept. The information's there. It's just how they're receiving it, and we don't know that unless they tell us or we figure that person out. So,
Yeah, John has a book on almost everything that
oh
deals with
yeah,
leadership, and he has that with the 17 indisputable laws of teamwork. Then
yes.
you have the 21 indisputable laws of leadership. He has all this and all, and
Look it up, guys. Yeah, there's different type of books out there, whatever that you're looking for. We're not here to promote the book, but be nice to hey John C. Maxwell.
well, his books, his leadership books, those are for individuals who, you know, uh, not it's not just for entrepreneurs. It's those folks within the corporate world.
Yeah.
how can they build a successful team within within the company and all that. It's always a good read to go and reference, what made it successful for John C. Maxwell. And I know he has a nonprofit organization, that I still get emails from them. So,
Yeah.
they're always trying to create new leaders.
Right.
John and his group, his nonprofit group's been all around the world teaching other governments and countries,
Yes.
to create teams, create leaders out of.
We talked about different books today. We did something a little different. So, any closing thoughts? The difference.
Yeah, be careful who you associate yourself with. Know who you want to be around, and just dive deep. Like I said, ask yourself that question: is do you actually know who you are? Find your identity. Find out who you really are.
Amen.
And association's also another thing. But if there's something that you're struggling with in life, I know damn well you can pick up that phone and you've been on Google for forever and all that. Google search something. Find out which book has the best reviews. New York bestseller. Something that what you're struggling with. Look that up. Pick it up. Buy it.
Thank you, difference. And for those who don't like to read books, they have audiobooks now where people read the books for you. I mean, whatever it is, whatever that you can get your hands on to help you out, if you can't talk to anyone. But books are a very great way of dealing with whatever you're going on. That's just our personal opinion, because you're able to clear your mind and just find a nice quiet space. Could be the corner in your room or right there downstairs. Grab a cup of coffee or some water and just have your me time. Set that time aside. That's what's important, is managing your time, and like the difference said, is getting to know yourself better. And if you want to get to know yourself better, you got to start taking action. We can't keep saying, I want to do better, I want to do this, and then you go on with your regular life without changing anything. Thanks for joining us on Let's Talk About It. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to leave us a review. Until next time, keep evolving, keep growing, and keep changing your thinking for the better.
Peace. Go out there and make a difference.